Ho ho ho! Let's go to backup here.
Good morning, Craig.
Oh, good morning, Tim. What brings you down here?
Well, as you know, WWDC is coming up in a couple of weeks, and I just want to get a rough idea of what it is we'll actually be presenting to our developers.
Well, as you know, we've got some exciting announcements for iOS, macOS, tvOS, watchOS. We got all sorts of cool things coming for it.
Wow, that's so awesome to hear.
Oh, and don't forget to advertise our TV Plus trailers as well.
Now, what about iPadOS?
What do you mean, what about iPadOS?
Well, our sales have been slumping for iPad Pros, and we finally figured out exactly what the problem is. All of the reviewers on YouTube and other media sites have not been complaining about the iPad hardware. They love the hardware of the iPad Pro, but their problem is it's so good that iPadOS isn't taking advantage of it. And we want to be so proud of the software that we put on all of our devices.
He's got a point. Let's begin. So a quick thing that I want to address before I actually get into the details of at least what I'm predicting to come out of WWDC. I just have to make sure that I tamper all of your expectations. And why? It's because I'd rather come into an event with low expectations so that when something exciting happens, woohoo! We get to be all excited and cheerful and, well, the world is great, instead of coming in with high expectations only for it to be a boring event and you're like,
why did I come here to waste my time?
So if what I'm about to say seems kind of depressing or sad just to get your expectations set, it's because I want to make sure when we actually watch WWDC, we're blown away. Alright, disclaimer set aside, let's actually get into some details. First of all, we all need to remember this, okay? Despite that, yeah, Apple has done this at some WWDCs, keep in mind it's supposed to be an event about software. Despite that there are so many leaks and rumors of possible Macs coming. Yeah, we had those last year. We were supposed to get MacBook Pros last year, according to Jern Purser. Oh wait, no, those didn't come. We got no hardware at WWDC. Same as the year before, so everyone's like, okay, well they gotta announce some form of hardware this year. You know what? I'm going to go against everyone and say, no, I'm not expecting it. I am expecting it to be software and software only. But if there were potential hardware, things that you could expect if they were to announce hardware is, well, basically the Macs that they haven't really touched on in a while, like, you know, the MacBook Air, the Mac Mini, and oh god, please kill that low-end 13-inch MacBook Pro. I love the Touch Bar. I love that MacBook Pro just because of the Touch Bar, but in terms of what everybody else cares in a laptop, and let me tell you, the Touch Bar isn't one of them, unfortunately, it makes no sense in the lineup. 0 cents. Why is that MacBook still here? But that's what I'm expecting if they do any hardware. It is possible, however, they might do a Mac Pro announcement as well, because they usually announce that type of stuff at WWDC if they actually, well, announce any hardware to begin with. But once again, this is a software event, okay? Do not expect hardware. I know you guys are dying for some, but no, do not expect it. And besides, even if they did announce hardware, I don't think it'd be a good idea for them right now because ship dates on everything have slipped so far back due to, I wonder why. So yeah, just getting that out there right now, okay? If there is hardware, expect some form of Mac, because that's usually what they like to announce at WWDC. They could blow away with something else, but once again, don't even expect hardware at all. And now we move on to our software portion, which is what WWDC is usually supposed to be. I'm not going to predict any features that are coming out, so I'm basically just going to make my whole entire wish list. However, I do have a slight problem with this, and it's because, well, I mean, a lot of their software is already pretty dang good. So I guess I'm just going to basically give us some feature ideas and feature requests that, okay, probably have already been decided on at this point, but there's just some things that I'd like to see. iOS. The one thing about iOS that, I really don't want anything more from iOS. I mean, things that I'm requesting needs to be changed at least, but there's a couple things that some people have honestly bothered me about as well, and it's, well, they want a different design. They want a redesign with iOS, and I don't care about the design that much. And honestly, I don't see anything wrong with iOS's current design. I really, really like it ever since they moved away from the skeuomorphism. Now, it wasn't bad. Skeuomorphism wasn't bad, but it just felt a little more, honestly, cluttered. It felt like a bunch of objects cluttered into one screen. Now, a lot of people like it because, while it looks like a bunch of different objects, that's why they like the skeuomorphism. It was designed to resemble a bunch of different objects that, well, made it easy to tell, okay, I'm clicking on this and all that. But I just didn't like it because I saw it as a bunch of objects crammed into one screen. So I prefer the flat design that iOS currently is. So here's what I'm actually going to request. So if I like the current design, a lot of people have gotten bored with it. Apple, just because I'm saying this doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Why not give users the option to choose between them? Like, make a theme pack. As you're setting up iOS, how about you allow the user to choose the theme? Do you want the skeuomorphism theme that a lot of the pro users evidently want? I don't understand why, but they just want it. Or do you want the flat design that a lot of other users like myself like? Can we compromise in this way? I win. The users who want skeuomorphism win. We all win. Everyone's a winner. Can we do that? That's basically all that everyone's looking for in iOS, though I highly doubt that's going to be the case. They are saying that iOS is going to dramatically change in terms of the way it's going to be used. I have no idea how that's going to be the case, but I guess we'll find out when WWDC hits. Moving on to macOS. Are there any things that I have to ask for? And actually, yeah. In terms of system stability, I haven't had any problems with it. However, I am having a slight issue with iMovie, the desktop version. What's that issue? All of my audio clips, the short audio clips, all of those audio clips are getting cut off randomly in iMovie, and it's not helping me at all. The biggest instance where it pops up nearly every single time is all of like my intro sound effects and my outro sound effects. The entire time I've been doing this, I've actually had to basically recompile the entire clip. And with my skits channel, for example, that's a very, very complicated compile to actually time everything and get every sound effect to play at a specific time. Please, Apple, fix this bug in iMovie. I would like to use my audio clips again for my intros and outros, except this is really frustrating. Kink out the few bugs that are happening in a couple applications. My biggest problem is with iMovie right now. Once again, macOS, honestly, I have very few complaints. Oh, one more request for macOS that I have. There's one complaint about macOS that I've had ever since I switched to it. I don't like the way it full screens apps, okay? I basically never actually full screen an app unless it's a video I'm watching, for example. Instead, what I do is I actually stretch all of my windows to take up the entire display. Why is that? It's because every single time I actually expand the window to take up the entire screen, I lose the full screen window controls. It decides to hide them away in software, and I don't understand why. Now, sure, it comes back whenever you bring the mouse to the top of the menu bar, but that's so annoying. Why do I have to scroll all the way to the very top of the display, then come back to the window controls, when I can just, on Windows, for example, just go to the window controls, no need to scroll to the top of the display. It's so annoying. Apple, please change the way full screen works on the Mac. It's not good. Windows does it better. I can't believe that I'm actually complimenting Windows at this point, because you know how much I hate it. So please, fix the full screens. WatchOS, Well, honestly, I don't really have many complaints, and that's because I just got my Apple Watch a couple weeks ago, and honestly, I love it. Yeah, no complaints here. tvOS? I don't have an Apple TV, so I honestly wouldn't know. Alright, and then there's one OS left, and there's a reason why I saved this for the last, and it's because honestly, it really needs the most improvement. All the other operating systems, I couldn't think of a single thing to add because they're basically near perfect. I got no problems with it. However, we need to move on to iPadOS, and that's because, sure, it's good at doing the basics, but I mean, well, there's some basics that it can't even do. If Apple is going to pitch this as a laptop replacement, and no, not just you stick it on a keyboard and add a trackpad to it, boom, laptop replacement, that is not how you replace your laptop, people. I mean, we need features to make the iPad better, and I can see why Apple sort of hasn't been doing this. It's because they kind of own the tablet space, because, I mean, let's be real, Android on tablets, it's not good. And then Microsoft's Surface line, yeah, it's not good either. Apple's pretty much owned this, and they've kind of gotten lazy with it, and that's kind of a problem because right now, especially with the iPad Pro, they are spitting out some pretty dang good hardware. However, despite how good that hardware is, we're basically doing the same stuff we do on a $320 iPad. For example, I'm looking to get an iPad myself, especially to use for my mobile setup and for Photoshop and making thumbnails. I really do not like using Photoshop on the desktop. The problem is the uses of which I use an iPad for are so limited that it's really hard for me to justify $1,000 on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And yes, I'm going 12.9-inch. I cannot compromise on screen real estate. What's the problem here? Well, let's start addressing some of the basics that iPadOS honestly really needs, and it's kind of embarrassing that it hasn't gotten these features at this point. First of all, weather. Why can't we have a weather app? iOS has a dedicated weather app. My watch has a dedicated weather app. So why can't we make a dedicated weather app for the iPad? I mean, sure, here's an example of what you can do. Display the current temperature, high and low, like we have on our iPhone. Then below it, the hourly forecast. Then you can have a one half of the display displaying your hourly, while the other half you can display your weekly forecast or daily forecast, whatever you want it, whatever you call it. And then below that, you could totally take new advantage of your radar by having a big portion to display the radar. There's so many different things you could do to actually integrate a weather app into this. You have a lot of screen real estate. Why is there no weather app? Another thing that is so weird that I cannot figure out why, to my surprise, every operating system except tvOS, which honestly makes sense. I don't think tvOS really needs this. Every operating system they make except iPadOS has a calculator app. The iPhone has it. The Mac has one. My watch has one. But yet we can't make a calculator app for the iPad? Okay, what's the problem with that? Because I can think of so many different things you can do to actually integrate a calculator onto the iPad. Apple's justification for not actually integrating one yet is, well, it looks kind of goofy due to the big buttons and such. Well, you want a suggestion? Add a more complex calculator. What do I mean by that? A graphing calculator. The iPhone, I can see why it doesn't have a graphing calculator, even though it's actually nearly the size of my graphing calculator. But then again, software buttons are a tad harder to push than physical buttons, so okay, that makes sense. But the point is, you got a bigger display here. Take advantage of it. You can actually stick a graphing calculator on a display this size. So if you can't fit a basic calculator or scientific calculator because it looked too big and goofy, then try a graphing calculator. That would actually be very useful and would allow us to save a lot of money on graphing calculators, because you know how much those things cost? Give you a hint, not cheap. So basic things like that, seriously, these are even basic things that even average users would care about. And yet the iPad doesn't even have it. Why? Next up on the list, and this is actually one of my personal things that I really wish they would bring back. Bring back the iPadOS 13, 14 home screen design. Yep. Honestly, the iPadOS 15 home screen design is objectively worse than 13 and 14. They had the best implementation of a home screen for a big device. They took advantage of it by increasing the density in terms of how many apps you could actually fit on one page. That is smart. Why did they get rid of this? It's so dumb. Other requests I have is, well, okay, multitasking has gotten as good as it gets for honestly a tablet. Like seriously, people are saying they want like window style management for multitasking on a tablet. I honestly don't think you'd want that, because considering your primary way is interacting with big buttons due to your finger being so fat compared to a precision cursor, yeah, you don't really want to clutter your tablet with that many apps, especially if it's an iPad mini you're using. So honestly, multitasking on iPad, okay, it's gotten to almost an acceptable level, and here's the reason why I'm saying almost. Can we please drag files between two different folder windows? Can we just do that, please? Unless that's already a thing, I don't know, because I don't use an iPad that supports it. But speaking of files, the Files app is still limited. Why is it so hard to make a Files app? I mean, seriously, Apple, you made a file manager on macOS. You know what needs to be done with that file manager. So why can't you take all of those features and basically shove it into the Files app on this thing? Mind-boggling how incapable the Files app really is. These are just some basic things that, yeah, the iPad honestly should be able to do, but really clear that Apple has been so against it, and I don't understand why, because these are things that would totally help even the average user, even the pro user. Like maybe they'd like to, I don't know, pick up their iPad and check the weather or do some calculations and such instead of using their iPad for maybe Photoshop. Maybe this is an arts we're talking about, doing a quick Photoshop. Looking nasty outside, what's the weather? Oh, right, my iPad doesn't have a weather app. I have to go find another device and check the weather. Seriously, Apple, come on. What is wrong? All right, and these are just some basic feature requests that, yeah, there's a lot of pro things that I could request for, like, for example, maybe a slightly more pro version of iMovie, because iMovie on iOS and iPadOS currently sucks. Except Apple has actually teased they're going to redesign iMovie already last Apple event, so I guess that's already being addressed. So, okay, I guess, yeah, for the most part, if those things are changed, I think I'd be pretty happy, to be honest. At the end of this video, I actually would like to have some user feedback. This is the first video I'm actually going to upload in 4K. Let me know if you guys actually care about that stuff and want me to start actually filming and uploading in 4K, even though it's going to be a bit of a pain. But hey, I got the Mac to actually handle that type of footage, so let me know. Do you care about me uploading videos in 4K? Please let me know. Alright, thank you for watching. Do me a favor and interact with the stuff below. My name is DeWolf, Random Alpha, signing out.